Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our monthly second Saturday's poetry reading hosted by local poet Kathy Donnelly. My name is Dan Kerr, and I have the privilege of being your moderator for today. We do have our featured poet today, Mike Dailey, but we also have the opportunity, as Mike is waving there, we have an opportunity for anyone who is here to read one of their poems. So if you'd like to be in the queue to read one of your poems, please enter your name in chat. Please keep your microphone muted. So that means after you read, turn off your microphone because the background noise can be quite distracting. Feedback is a gift. So if there's something that we do that you like, if there's something that we do that you think we could do better or that you don't like, I have a very simple email, danielbkerr@verizon.net. Kathy and I review the feedback periodically, and although we've been doing this for about 4 years virtually, we continue to refine it. So your suggestions, comments, and feedback are very welcome and appreciated. Planned agenda, I will get you settled. I will turn you over to Kathy, who generally reads a poem, and then she'll introduce today's featured poet, one of our own, Mike Dailey. I say one of our own because he's a regular participant in this program. So Mike Dailey, then we'll do the open read, then we'll bring Mike back for an encore, and then Kathy will have some concluding remarks for the program. So you're here for poetry, not for evangelization. I'm aware of that. But we do a number of outreach programs at the church, which the poets do participate in. So for instance, we have a monthly poetry program called Saturdays at 6. Someone always calls and say, what time is the Saturdays at 6 concert? It's indeed at Saturday 6. So October 11th is the next one, which is the next poetry reading as well. But in the evening at 6 o'clock, in honor of Italian American Heritage Month, we have a soprano who many of you know, Heidi Schneider, who's gotten her doctorate at Stony Brook, has performed at the church many times. She's going to do Italian art songs and arias. I believe she's going to do 29 of them, and that's on October 11th. We do the second Saturday's poetry each month, as you know. Thank you for coming. And we also, the fourth Thursday of each month, we also do Native American drumming. So if you're interested in those, just visit the website or just give me an email and I will give you more information about those. And these are all things, the reason Kathy and I highlight these things, these are things that the poets participate in. It's quite often you see poets at the concerts and quite often they come to the drumming sessions as well. We just had our last concert was the one time a year that we actually bring together poetry, music, and Native American drumming. We call it Conversations of the Sacred, and it was last Saturday. So if you look in the up-hand right-hand corner, you can see the ensemble of people, and then you'll recognize many of the local poets. You'll also see the gentleman up there in Indian garb. That's our Native American drummer. And you'll see in the back row here the two musicians from the university, and the gentleman on the left is Dan Kinney, our organist. Over on the lower right-hand corner, you'll see Carolyn Emerson. She was the one who curated and made the selections of the poems. The way Conversations of the Sacred works is we have poems from various spiritual traditions. Each poem is then followed by a musical interlude, either by students from the university, the All Souls organist, or the Native American drummer. And this is a listing of the poets who read this year. This is an annual event, so if you didn't read this year and would like to read next year, let me know. And these were the poets that read, and Father Ian Wetmore is our priest in charge, is not thinks of himself as a poet, but we had him read one of the poems that was read, sacred poems, was the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. So he read that for us. So conversation, here's what we did in this year. It was last Saturday. We're going to do it again in 2026, probably the same time of year. So if you'd like to be a reader in that, just let me know. The other thing coming up, and I'm going to wear front of my hat here, little advertisement here. We have the All Souls for All Souls 5K race, 2K walk, once a year, going into our 17th year. One of the hats I wear at All Souls is I am the director of that program. What this event does, it's a 5K race or 2K walk. It raises funds to make the church accessible to all. When Stanford White designed the church in 1896, average life expectancy was 50 years. So a lot of us wouldn't have made the cut. And the church is at the top of a steep hill. And we know there are people who would like to attend our programs that can't get there because of the accessibility issues. So this raises funds to make the church accessible. And also it celebrates the role in the community, all the different things that we do, all the different ways we serve the community. You know, we've got about 100 members, but we've got over 1,000, including most of you. It's actually 1,100 now, 1,100 friends of the church. These are people who we've met, who have a relationship with us, who get invited to all of our events. Okay, and each year there is a group. You'll recognize Rabbi Fisher, you'll recognize our friend from Northportdale, you'll recognize Kathy, you'll recognize Dr. Bronson, you'll recognize Wendy. We have a group each year called the Live Poets Society who walks in the race each year, and I'm sure there'll be a group of, I know Wendy is already registered, and I think our friend from Northport is already registered in Rabbi Fisher, so I know they'll be there this year. So if you'd like to walk with the Live Poets Society, just register or show up that day, and you can walk proudly with them in there under their banner. Okay. So again, on behalf of the folks at All Souls, welcome. And now I'm going to turn you over to Kathy. Kathy, over to you. Remember to put your mic on.
Thanks for reminding me. So I see that Randy has joined us and Maggie. So I just want to say good morning and welcome. So I would like to, I think I've done this before, which is to mention a gentleman who grew up in Nesconset. So he's one of our neighbors here in Suffolk, and his name is Mr. William Hayen. And William is a prolific and a professor, prolific writer and a professor. And we're very honored to have him. He's even appears in the anthologies that come up. He has put this book together called Diaspora. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see it? And it's got 900 poems. Can you imagine? The book costs $100. I bought it because he's a friend, and otherwise I would hardly spend $100 on a poetry book, but yes, here's an exception. He writes, he's like almost 90 years old now, he's retired, and he speaks when he speaks, such as the situation in the poem I'm going to read to you about Germany and the situation in Germany in the 40s. It's called The Stain. I happened to drink with a man who happened to be very happy. He was remembering being in the old country when that country's secret police swarmed his apartment building, but did not come for him. They came for a neighbor across the hall, eventually humped that unfortunate away in a body bag. My happy drinker saw through the keyhole blood seeping through the bag. And that evening he himself mopped the hallway floor, but stains remained. He said his heart, too, was stained. But now he was in my safe country with his family, glad to be happy. And I thought of all these immigrants that are happy to be here and are not criminals and are being swept away. And certainly a sign of the times, and this is 80 years ago. So some things, I guess, just don't change. Now I have the privilege of reading Mike Dailey's bio. It's a little long, but I'm going to read the whole thing. So I'll read it a little quickly. And Mike, it's in first person. So this is not me. This is Mike talking. I have been writing poetry since I was 15 to 16, and I will be 77 on September 14th. Happy birthday coming up. I have probably written 23 to 2,500 poems, not counting the 400 to 500 haikus I have written in the past 10 years. The vast majority of my poetry is rhythm and rhyme, and very little free-form poetry. My poems usually relate a story rather than a description of what I have seen. I have 3 published books of poetry. One is Thoughts of a Future Cancer Survivor, 2012, about my cancer treatment. Somewhere Tonight a Soldier Stands, 2013, about a military following my 30 years working for the Army. And thirdly, Beneath the Ancient Olive Tree, 2015, my book of spiritual poems. I have also 13 collections I want to publish. Belly Up to the Bar, about drinking. From the Choir Loft, my second book of spiritual poems. Strange Bedfellows, about politics. Uncle Mike's Fashions and Food Around the World in 80 Poems. That's cute. All about places to visit. What's Up, Doc, about medical news. Once Upon a Crime, about criminal activities. Once Upon a Rhyme, with poems for children. Uncle Mike's cast of characters about folks that made the news. Tales of Tales, Feathers and Scales, about things in nature. And Haiku a Day, with enough haiku poems to last you one a day for more than a year. My poems have been published in half a dozen anthologies and maybe dozens of magazines and poetry websites, with a couple of poems turned into songs and several more in consideration for songs. I also provided 15 poems for Flex Folks Press, which was a psychology commissioned workbook for troubled children. Anthologies, Cocktails, World Hunger, Caring for Souls, Chicken Soup, Veterans Anthology, Heart of Flesh, Pure of Heart. Just to mention, we are all welcome to send poems into Hiram LaRue, one of the poets. He's been here with us for World Hunger, if you're interested. Magazine and websites, Misfit Guilt, Auroras and Blossoms, Red Elf Review, Entropy, Saddlebag Dispatch, Writers Dear Booze, Story Beast, Valiant Scribe, Active Muse, Silver Birch Press, Prolific Pulse Press, Superhighway, Viewhound, Active Muse, Savage Post, and All About My Mother. And lastly, he writes, I have no writing credentials. Can you imagine? I think you do. A master's degree in biology and 30 years as an analyst for the Army. I live in Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina, with my wife of 53 years. This is a man who is in love with the written word, and I'm so happy to have Mike with us and also reading today. Mike Dailey.
Good morning, everyone. Kathy, thank you for that beautiful, well-written thing that I sent you.
Yeah. If you do say so yourself.
If I do say so myself. I am going to give you a sample from a bunch of my different collections. This very first one was from my first collection of poems about my cancer surviving. I was asked, why do you write such detailed accounts of your bodily functions following service? So I had to write this one. This is why I write. Misery loves company, but that's not why I write. I write because I hear voices that talk to me at night. The voices say there's others that are far worse off than me, and maybe they need comfort, and I'm their company. Sometimes they might need humor, sometimes a soothing voice, sometimes it's just diversion, and I give them that choice. I give them what I'm feeling or what I'm going through, and I ask that all you share these with those who need them too. This next one, I hope there's some of you that can relate to this. This is called That First Kiss. I remember all this, that very first kiss and that look of distrust in your eyes, and the questions you asked from the first to the last of all the who's, what's, and why's. I remember the night when we had our last fight, and you said we were over for good. And that last kiss goodbye, I cannot tell a lie, froze me right there where I stood. I remember that kiss, the taste of your lips, a taste that is yet on my tongue, and the door as it slammed, as if it was planned that our love song would never be sung. I remember your face, the time and the place, that first kiss, my heart skipped a beat. I remember and sigh as those years all flew by. I dream of a first kiss repeat. I remember your charms, holding you in my arms, the warmth of your head on my chest. I remember the good and all that I could, but that first kiss was always the best. I remember, it seems, you have haunted my dreams, dreams of just what might have been. Though we've drifted apart, there's a spot in my heart that longs for that first kiss again. This next poem is based on a letter my mother wrote to her sister from the jungles of New Guinea back in 1942. It's called Army Nurse. When dawn is finally breaking, I can crawl back to my bed. That nightmare's finally over, but the day still lies ahead. Shoots floating over the jungle must have been about midday, and when shadows moved in the evening, we would lie in our cots and pray. The red sun on their canopy told us who they were, No time to think about them. Our days are such a blur. The tent isn't much protection when the enemy comes to call. We'd hear a shout or a gunshot, curl up in a foxhole ball. Sleep still in our khakis, the helmet by our bed, roll ourselves under the tent flap, and sleep on the ground instead. A rosary in my pocket, a prayer upon my tongue, a letter still in writing from a nurse that felt so young. In the daylight, see the damage from a night that felt so long. Scrub up for the morning duty. Let the soldiers see you're strong. They carry them in on stretchers or in the back seat of a Jeep. This one needs our attention. This one's wounds will keep. This one's leg is shattered. This one's chest is raw. That one just won't make it. But that's not the last I saw. Morning turns to evening, and still they bring boys in. There's no rest for the weary, and the night begins again. Now, I love looking at police reports, especially from odd little towns and stuff. Here's an actual police report from a Blount'sville, Tennessee, and they were interviewing a lady that was suspected of stealing from the cash register. A woman from Blount'sville East High, accused of what she did deny, she said, "Search me, you can. Here, I'll give you a hand." The policeman said, "Go on and comply." She quickly stepped out of her skirt. Next to come off was her shirt. Her bra came unhooked as the officers looked, ever and always alert. She thought what disrobing would do, distract them till they thought it true. If they saw no lost money, they would have to say, "Honey, I guess that the thief wasn't you." She said, "See, I told you it's true. An apology from you is due." But the cops didn't waver and said, "Do us a favor, kindly remove your left shoe." And there in the shoe lay the bill, the 50 she took from the till. They said, "Now get dressed." We were not that impressed, and she gave them a look that would kill. So what did we learn? Let me see. The policemen in East Tennessee were not led astray by this woman's display. Could I say the same had it been me? I have a book on places I've seen, places I've gone. There's a sign on the bypass of Richmond, Virginia called Blackwater Swamp. I always wondered what that place was. I couldn't find anything on the internet. One day driving by, I listened to the wheels rattling on the road, and this story came to me. I remember the Blackwater Swampland. I remember, and I smiled, sitting on its mushy banks when I was but a child. My buddies and I would play in the mud, and that Blackwater Swamp would seep into our blood. Mud to our ankles, wet to our knees, the frogs and the toads and the snakes in the trees. I can still smell that smell, the odor of death. It waters the eye, it takes away breath. It was there that I met her, a girl of 15. Her hair was coal black, her eyes emerald green. She smelled of sweet lilac. She smiled and I'd melt, but she didn't feel the way that I felt. I tried to kiss her. She slapped my face. I left the swamp. To my buddies I raced. They were much older and they'd understand. They'd tell me I'm on my way to a man. But they simply laughed and called me a child. I inwardly cringed, but outwardly smiled. I'll prove I'm a man and I ain't no kid. I met her again. That's what I did. We met at the swamp. Remember that smell? It's a smell I remember and remember so well. When I left the swamp, I simply smiled, for I left that swamp no longer a child. And those emerald eyes and that coal black hair are part of the reason that smell is still there. Okay, just so you know, I'm not a serial killer. Here's one from my poems from the choir loft. It was written right after Russia invaded the Ukraine. I do not know for whom I pray. I pray for those at war today. I do not know, and still I pray. Your children, Lord, this very day may not have the time to kneel and pray. And so, dear Lord, I'll do my part and pray for them with my whole heart. They have their minds on other things, bursting bombs and bullet stings. How to stay alive this day. It's for them I kneel and pray. I know no names, nor even faces. I can't divine the time or places, but you know, Lord, what they would say. So it's for them I kneel and pray. Give them hope, Lord. Give them peace. May their faith in you increase. Comfort them in your own way. And it's for them I kneel and pray. Okay, let's change it to, this is sort of children and nature in the same vein. It's called Questions. I've got some questions. The truth, if you please. I'd like to know, does a penguin have knees? Can a rhinoceros, if he has a twitch, raise his hind leg to get at that itch? If water gets in a bull elephant's ear, can he hop on one leg until it is clear? A better one yet, can he smother a sneeze by holding his trunk between his front knees? Is a zebra a white horse with black stripes on the side or a black horse with white stripes? How can we decide? Can a wolf really blow, or is that just a tail? Can a golf ball plug up the bow hole of a whale? Why do dogs turn round and round until at last they just lie down? Why does a roadrunner run? Can't he fly? Why does Wile E. Coyote continuously try? Is there a reason? I just have to beg. Why do flamingos stand just on one leg? Why is a rabbit foot lucky for me, but unlucky for the rabbit that's now down to 3? Why did that chicken cross the road? Why did they call it pigeon-toed? Why do brown bears sleep through snows, while polar bears love days like those? Why do bats sleep upside down? Why don't dingoes make a sound? Why do coyotes howl at the moon? Does a mockingbird have its very own tune? Why do hummingbirds just hum? Where does the stink from a stink bug come? What made that very first hyena laugh? It must have been one big hilarious gaffe. How does a rooster know just when to crow? How does a homing pigeon know where to go? How does a possum think he will survive by making us all think that he's not alive? How does a male mantis get into the act, knowing when finished he will be attacked? Why does a poet write down things this way? Why did you come out to hear us today? These are the questions. Please give them some thought. I'd hate to believe they were all asked for naught. Okay, a little more serious, a little more introspective. This is called a woodsy stream. Life is like a woodsy stream that constantly is flowing. You're just a bubble in that stream, not knowing where you're going. Twists and turns come suddenly and catch you unaware. But you ride upon the currents, the twists and turns your fare. When rocks and logs get in the way, you somehow flow around them. You don't let yourself get bogged down with the drama that surrounds them. The stream sometimes so quiet you could almost hear things think. Then all at once it gets so loud your eyes begin to blink. And then it changes once again for no ungodly reason. And this goes on for years and years and season after season. There are bigger things, my friends, that come upon the stream, disrupting how the water flows, disrupting all your dreams. Then in a fleeting moment you look, and they are gone. And just like that, you realize you too have moved on. Sure, you'll come upon some rapids and perhaps a waterfall. Just bask in the excitement. Don't freeze in fear and stall. At times you'll find a quiet pond and stay right there a while. But the winds will change, and in a bit, you've gone another mile. Well, my stream's down to a trickle now, but I know it's not the end. The winds will change, and pretty soon I'll be off around that bend. I don't know where it'll take me, but I won't be denied. Can't wait to see what's next. I've so enjoyed this ride. Okay, here's another one I hope some of you will relate to. It's a cowlick in my eyebrow. I have a cowlick in my eyebrow that's growing clockwise now. It starts out near the edge, but it extends along my brow. The central hair is growing about 3 inches long. It really isn't noticeable unless I comb it wrong. Then it corkscrews perpendicular, straight out for all to see. The cowlick in my eyebrow, till now unknown to me. You see, I'm growing older and I notice how they stare. Now I know it's just my eyebrow and not that 3 inch long nose hair. I fear it was my nostrils and the hair there growing out, or maybe a homegrown ear muff. What's that all about? The hair on top is thinning, but the hair on back is not. I guess I'm growing older. My hair has gone to pot. So you see, that newfound cowlick is no surprise to me. It's just another facet of what old age will be. With body parts rebelling, what was turned on now is turned off. Where once I had some muscle has now turned fat and soft. I won't let this thing bother me. It's just a time clock click to look into the mirror to find an eyebrow grown cowlick. Sometimes I write poems because I get asked to write poems. We had a beautiful tree at the corner of our community back in Virginia. It'd been there for years. They asked me to write a poem for it. A friend thought I should write an ode to this old tree on Walney Road, this mighty oak that cast a shade before the white man did invade, that saw the Indians depart back when Lord Fairfax had his start, that saw the settlers clearing land who somehow let this oak tree stand. And stand it stood for 300 years. It heard our laughter, heard our tears. It stood throughout the Civil War as Union troops went door to door. It's known that soldiers set up camps and on its branches hung their lamps. And when this country lane was paved, they placed a curve. This tree was saved, a landmark for all those living near, the oak tree that we held so dear. But lightning strikes and driving wind have brought the oak tree to its end. When suddenly one day we found the county brought this oak tree down. Where once this mighty tree did sway, we've naught but memories today. Here's a poem from my belly up to the bar. It's called Jim Beam Black, which was my mother's favorite drink. This is not exactly her life, but a part of it. They say a neighbor found her, passed out on the floor. Bottles there beside her, a note was on the door. Don't you bother knocking, you'll find me there inside. Tell my friends and family, I'm sorry, and I tried. Jim Beam Black could get your number. Jim Beam Black could get your soul. Jim Beam Black could take you under if you let it take control. I'm so lonely since I lost you. I'm so lonely since you're gone. Being lonely sure can cost you if you're drinking to hold on. There are days that I still see you. There are days I don't think straight. There are days that I still need you. Got me drinking way too late. Jim Beam Black might have my number. Jim Beam Black now wants my soul. Jim Beam Black could take me under if I let it take control. It's been years, but I'm still waiting. It's been years I've had to fill. It's been years of hesitating. All those memories to kill. All my friends and family pray now. All my friends and family fret. All my friends and family say now, Jim Beam Black will kill me yet. Well, Jim Beam Black has got my number. Jim Beam Black just took my soul. Jim Beam Black sure took me under when I let it take control. So don't you bother knocking. You find me there inside. Just tell my friends and family, I'm sorry, but I tried.
Mike, you went silent there. Your mic turned off. We can't hear you. There you
Now
go.
you can.
Okay, go ahead.
I hit my hand on the mouse.
It's an emotional poem. I can understand why.
Yes, this one started out in New York. I don't know if you know about the annual No Pants subway ride. When I moved down to North Carolina, I got in with a poetry group of little old ladies, and this was my first poem to them. I shocked them. It's been brought to my attention there's a brief 1 day suspension of the requirement to wear your pants and ride. It's an improv-based experiment to show there's no embarrassment, and pants or not, you have no need to hide. So Saturday, the 10th of Jan, be a woman or a man, a lovely pair of drawers will hit the spot. Ignore the snickers and the stares, act as if you had no cares, and ride that train as if you just forgot. There'll be thousands around the world that will leave their pants unfurled and ride the train or metro casually. You can join them brave and bold, sans pants as you've been told, or once on board, just drop them gradually. If you are among the masses, please show no bare asses. Wear those some drawers with regal dignity. If you ride the train this weekend, remember no frayer peeking. If I see you, pretend you don't see me. That's enough out of me.
Mike, that was great. You're right on exactly 20 minutes.
Good.
It's never happened before. So you're very well planned. Just beautiful. It's actually, you fit in 12 poems and the reflections of a cancer victim and listening to all those voices. We can still all remember our first kiss. The beautifully written, and that poem from the Army nurse from your mom, just very moving. The image of her laying in her cot with the rosary in her pocket, and what the next day when they bring the boys in, very moving. And the Tennessee police report was a classic. I didn't know quite where that was going to go, but I guess it pays to look at the shoes and the Blackwater swamp, and the smell is still there. And I guess the reason you remember the smell is probably the girl with the long black hair. And
Yep.
praying for the victims of war, very, very timely. You kneeled and prayed for them. And the questions, boy, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun with the, I remember it reminded me of the nuns when the kids would show up with a rabbit foot, the nuns would always say, "Hey, it wasn't so lucky for the rabbit." And the being reminded that we're all but bubbles in the stream, and that we're now down to the last trickle. Those of us, where there's more sand in the bottom of the hourglass than the top, and that corkscrew in your eyebrow and the reflections are getting older. Just great. And the tree, the spanning of the life, that tree that went back to Lord Fairfax, and the image of the Civil War, and just how that tree was spared. And you can't fool Mother Nature. I guess Mother Nature finally got it. And that very moving poem about your mom. And I was glad you said that wasn't all of her, but that Jim Beam Black. Anyone who's ever battled with alcohol can certainly know about that. And no pants, very, very fitting and fun way to end. So, in short, well done, my friend. That was quite moving. Everyone, lots of people clapping and smiling, and just great stuff. And we'll look back to bring you back for an encore.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move now to the open read. And just to remind folks, the open read. So I'm going to call upon you in the order that you put your names in chat, and I'll call you in groups of 3. Please, only one poem, and one poem, 5-minute maximum. Please keep your mic muted, so only turn it on when you're called upon, and once you're done reading, please turn it off. Please wait to be called upon, and then Kathy will close the program, and we should end up a little bit after 12 today. So the first group of 3 that we have, it'll be Marvin, followed by Nicola, followed by Randy. So Marvin, over to you.
Before I read, I want to wish Mike a happy birthday. His birthday is tomorrow, so happy birthday, Mike. The title of the poem is Help. She closed her eyes. The building spread across the world in long corridors that held tomorrow. She coughed into her odyssey, She would never escape Circe and Calypso. She couldn't tell which was which. Cyclops had one eye. She nodded while the teacher spoke. Would he believe it for a sign that she, unknowing, knew? Hands were up, wine dark sea. Something was rosy fingered. She coughed, therefore she was. Why this old book? Outside was today. Muggers lurk, syringe hungry, child molesters, overcrowding Russian subs off Miami Beach. And still Poseidon? What's that? Oh, yes, sweet nymph and open sea. Maybe the lady in the office would help her again. But there was no one in algebra, and in biology, the girl assigned to her spoke about boys more than paramecia. She rested her head against a fist and gave herself a student look. But tomorrow was the test. She owed a history report, and there was a project due. What excuse would a mother give the neighbor when she went to summer school? She cried behind her eyes. Telemachus, she heard the teacher say. She raised a hand, but someone else was called. Maybe she knows enough to pass. Maybe she can swim this summer and horseback ride. Maybe she, Polybus, the teacher said. She heard her name. No, that's Helios, the teacher said. The day yawned. The undertow pulled at her legs. A horse rose out of a wave, its hoofs thrashing over her.
Thank you, Marvin. Well done. Okay. Nicola, over to you.
Okay, right, so I get myself unmuted. I don't think I've done this one here before. I wasn't intending to do this one, but it's sort of appropriate for the time of year. It's called The Turning of the Year. Sing, my love, of the turning of the year, of golden mornings and frost-bright nights, the end of summer and the coming chill. Rose hips glow in the rising sun, red-clothed as martyrs pictured in stained glass. Birds gather on roofs and power lines in preparation for the journey south. Where two rivers meet, a single heron stands, shrouded in tattered garments of morning mist, intent upon the waters, watching green weeds floating like a woman's hair, teased by the fingers of a playful current. Sing, my love, of the turning of the year, of falling leaves, a golden memory of summer past, tossed by the storms of equinox, of wood smoke carried on the evening air, and log piles stocked against the winter's chill. Stars shine out, scintillation in black velvet night, ice crystals cast a halo round the moon, pale as a lovesick maiden, cold as a widow's grief. Sing, my love, of the turning of the year. There you go.
Okay, Nicola. Well done. Okay, Randy, over to you.
This is called Peaches, written more like a journal entry. I first met him at the annual Saratoga Games, a weekend family event at my wife's Aunt Colleen's home in upstate New York, now attended by about 50 people. It started as a weekend away for adults to bet on horse racing, but when I arrived in 2000, the adults had their young kids racing with broomsticks between their legs and betting on who would win. Peaches was Cousin Tara's fiance, about 24, a fairly easygoing guy for a New Yorker. His sarcasm landed like it had a parachute. This contrasted with Tara's 10 cousins, all born to Irish Catholics from Queens, all whose sarcasm was a bus running over you. Yet Peaches fit well into the family. He was everyone's favorite, especially mine, a softie coming from California. That day, I arrive at work just north of Worcester, Massachusetts at 8 a.m. About 8:50, someone turns on a TV in the office. Newscasters are saying a small plane hit one of the towers. Rumors swirl. About 10 minutes later, we see live the second plane hit, a huge one. No doubt now, a terrorist attack. Two of the family work in the city. Aunt Eileen gets off the bus in New York to see bodies falling from the towers. She calls before cell phones are down, gets right back on the bus, and gets home to Queens in an hour. She's traumatized. The next day, she retires. After 39 years, she never works in New York City again. We don't hear about Cousin Jen for a long time. Worry sets in. Finally, over 2 hours later, she calls to say she had to walk across the bridge. She eventually transfers from the city to work on the island. 10 a.m. We hear Peaches, a young fireman, is okay. His shift ends at 8 a.m., and he works in Nassau anyway. Noon. We hear Peaches stayed to help. He even went into the towers. He's gone. 9 p.m. Word is he's okay. He made it. 11 p.m. No, he's confirmed dead. Peaches, everyone's favorite, a hole in my wife's extended family. Takes 2 years before we all feel somewhat normal. Of course, it takes cousin Tara longer. 5 years later, Tara meets Joe, easygoing Irish Catholic high school English teacher. After they have had 3 kids, he once told me, "I'm Irish. I just keep having kids until Tara told me how they're made." So Joe becomes the family's new favorite, but even 24 years later, we will never forget Peaches. Poem.
Beautiful, Randy. Very timely. Okay, the next group of 3 is Dan Kerr, followed by Claude, followed by Maggie. So just to add a little bit of background, as you know, I'm the director of the Souls for All Souls 5K race and 2K walk. And about 6 to 7 years ago, we thought it would be a good idea, my wife and I, if I actually ran in someone else's 5K to see what it was like. And this is the one and only 5K race that I ever ran in. And it was held at a Roman Catholic church in Setauket called St. James. And they actually began the race and ended the race in a graveyard. So the poem is called Running with Fosters. You'll see the title, why I chose this title in a moment. So Running with Fosters. My first 5K run began and ended in a graveyard. As I waited for the starting gun, I read the epitaphs on the tombstones. May God hold you in his hand. In his will is our peace. Jesus holds you in his arms. May you never run alone. The gun sounded and I had a great start. Not bad for a guy in his 60s as I ran past much younger runners. Then came the first of many hills, and I began to think about all those headstones. Dear God, please help me get up this hill. Jesus, don't let me die here. As the sweat drenched my running shirt, I thought of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Was it God's will that I finish this race, or would he take this cup from me? If only there were my own private Veronica along the way with a cool cloth to wipe the sweat off my face. As I pondered the agony of each hill, I suddenly realized I was not running alone. The many empty big blue beer cans in my garage were testament to my love of beer. The tombstone was right. You never run alone. God may have held me in his hand, but my good friend Foster's beer was with me at every hill. How much fleeter would I have been if I drank water instead of beer? How much less weight would I have to lug up each hill if I said a prayer each time I reached for one of those cans of Foster beer? When I returned to my car after the race, the empty blue can on the floor mat reminded me, it is true, you never run alone. Thank you. Okay, Claude, over to you. Claude, over to you. You got to turn your mic on. You're on mute. Claude? We'll give Claude another minute.
Okay, how about that?
There you go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I love that poem questions, Mike. I loved it. Okay, so Charlie Kirk was assassinated Apparently, he wasn't the nicest guy in the world. He said very nasty things about Muslims. He thinks that once they clean up DC, they should send the military into the rest of the cities in the United States, and some other things he's done. And then another thing, we're going to mention Patrice Lumumba. He was the first prime minister of the Congo, the Belgian Congo. That is the country where the king, when they were harvesting rubber, they chopped off 5 to 10 million hands of people. I don't know if you know all that. Anyway, but we're going to mention something about that. Anyway, so Mike Johnson, our Speaker of the House, said about the death of Charlie Kirk, "This is not who we are." So let's see what we say about that. This is not who we are, the Speaker of the House says. Mass shootings every day in the USA. Assassinations. Charlie Kirk, Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, JFK, RFK, Abraham Lincoln, William McKinley, Reagan shot, Trump too, Gerald Ford, the bullets missed, Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Michael Brown, George Floyd, racist murders innumerable, backing genocide abroad, heartless dictators, killing Gaddafi, Patrice Lumumba, dicing him up in pieces, mailing them around the world to warn our enemies who we are, intimidation, supplying the guns for hunts and wars, the CIA terminating activists, outspoken victims of our bloodthirsty nature, covered up by history, right or left, it everywhere. This is not who we are. We lie and deny. Our bullets silencing dialogue, reality's reflection, blinded by the shock of the next shooter's flash. This is not who we are.
Thank you, Claude. Okay. Maggie, over to you.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you, Dan and Kathy, for hosting today. This poem was part of Hiram LaRue's food program. I was a lucky one. My mother cooked naively tuna casseroles, pigs in blankets, meatloaf. Once I moved to the city, I mocked her skill to take a perfectly good roast beef and turn it into a small black rock. My parents worked hard to feed us. They offered love, support, education, and countless meals. I would trade the organic vegetables and cereals I am privileged to eat to spend an hour chewing my mother's Sunday roast. Food was available, plentiful, enough to fill a stomach, healthy enough to grow me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Okay, now we'll get others who we may have missed, but the only one that I have at this point who's on the list so far is Megan. So we'll listen to Megan and then we'll go around and give everyone else who wanted to read an opportunity to read. Megan, over to you.
Thanks, it's great to be here. This poem is called Raising a Glass to Dad. Raising a Glass to Dad. We never visited the gardens in Victoria that used to be a gaping quarry Time didn't permit us to reach the top of the Space Needle. We didn't bathe in the hot springs, holding a glass made out of glacial ice. We can't return together to fill the empty goblet of all we didn't do. But uh, I pick up the chipped cup of the future, which I won't repair, but with memories and your strength guiding me, I will pour effervescence, raise my glass to you and all you gave, and love will glitter off the cracks. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Well done. Okay. So I'm looking around at the group. Okay, so we got Virginia first. Virginia. And I always know Kathy likes to read, but anyone else other than Virginia and Kathy? And Shu, okay, Shu. And then Kathy. Okay, so let's try this and we'll go on once more. So let's go, and the next group of three will be Virginia, followed by Shu, followed by Kathy. So Virginia, over to you.
I think I just unmuted myself. Herring, New York. Years ago, when I was in the Girl Scouts, I carried the New York State flag from Rufus King Park in Jamaica up to Hillside Avenue for a great parade on July 4th. The great forms of liberty and justice waved their gowns above me, and the banner stated Excelsior, a favorite word of my father, the engineer businessman. His father fled a genocide to find freedom. To escape second-class citizenship, he came to a land of democracy and law, becoming the owner of his own company and earned renown. The leather harness across my chest helped me stand tall under the weight of the flag with the river and mountain. Vahan Movsession, cross mountains to leave Anatolia, no future there. Here he became Frank Shields and helped his sisters after they escaped the genocide to come to the land of opportunity where he flourished and where my father helped me to see greatness in the states of our great nation. I held the flag of one great state where we could rely on law, not force, and stood as tall as possible under its beauty. Later, I told my grandfather about my proud honor.
Thank you, Virginia. Shu, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So nice to see everybody here on the beautiful Saturday morning. It's a little bit cloudy, but the weather's still good. So I hope that we can still have some warm weather to enjoy. Here's my poem. My heart once had a home. My heart once had a home. So dear, so near. Now far away, now strange. Drifting along, not knowing where I belong. Blue jazz wets the memory. No song can mend my broken heart. The road to your arms, once clear, once true, dissolves into mist. At the crossroad, I'm lost in this cold, dark, dark night. Thank you.
Thank you, Shu. Well done. Kathy, over to you.
Hi, Shu, I'm gathering there was a great love of your life in all the poems that you write, and God bless you. So
Thank
I'd
you.
like to just say this was a very extraordinary day. I think each Saturday is, the second Saturday is wonderful. Mike, outrageously good. And I am now going to spend the rest of my life wondering if the zebra is black with white stripes or white with black stripes. That will haunt me forever now. But the other questions were just as witty, very, very funny. And I imagine that's one of your children's books. Yes? Are you there? I'm
Yes,
imagining.
that came from the children's book.
Yeah. I could tell. I felt like a child listening to it and laughing. And I certainly would buy that book for a grandchild. Yeah, I don't happen to have one right now, but if I did, It's just wonderful. I had no idea how prolific you are. Reading your bio, I was like, whoa, really amazing. And how, the pride in your bio, it just exudes. And I could feel it. You're a happy person, yeah?
Yes.
Despite
Yes.
all the trauma of life,
Yes.
the testing God puts us through, yeah? Testing, testing. I'm going to read this poem. I've read it to you before. I'm going to do it again because you can't turn on the news. And I have to tell you all that I'm a little tired of MSNBC. I've listened to Fox, but now I'm listening to Al Jazeera, which everyone's English speaking and not even accents half the time. But they interview people from all over the world. And I'm finding that it's a little bit more objective, not so emotional. And it's far more comprehensive. It's around the entire place. And it's right on I have the Fire Stick. So now I get Al Jazeera. And I just have to say, I have been to Israel. It is beautiful. Jerusalem is extraordinary. The Dead Sea, you can swim in it, and there's hotels that are just first world. And you look out over miles and miles and miles of caves. Each one may be a secret somewhere. So it's a fantastic place. And how it's, I mean, it's not doing what's happening to Gaza. It's of course, the government, and not to get into anything political, what's going on in Gaza is just beyond, beyond. And time for us to really all be protesting. I mean, genocide is just genocide, no matter who the people are. I again, not to make this political, but children are dying in Gaza. He sat there comfortably reading in his embroidered armchair, lamplight over his shoulder, directed to the page. Knowing the flow of electricity and water were disrupted, buildings were being leveled, reduced to rubble, fellow Palestinians trapped, all in a distance far from his area, which housed hospital employees, professionals, members of government, a university. Surely this was known. His area would be spared. Families extended to the third, sometimes fourth generation, as children came into the world like blessings, all sleeping, eating, praying together. His little girls came in to his favorite spot, into his private spot, or so he thought it was, with feathers they had found on the beach to tickle him under his nose. They giggled and wiggled around him for attention. He placed his bookmark, leaned forward, spread his arms like a hawk, made a great roar, just missing capturing them again and again. They danced with laughter, turned to two serious faces, looking to him, into his eyes. They stood perfectly still. In the next second, they were gone, made part of the rubble with the house, the embroidered chair, his book, his lamplight, him. He left this world like a blessing, not to live a second without them, not to live with only their memory, a wound never to heal. And times that by millions, and yeah.
Thank you, Kathy.
Home.
Okay, so Mike, we're back for your encore.
Okay, I'm going to end this with a very personal poem that I hope I can get through. And then I'm going to tell you what happened as a result of me writing this poem. It's called A Little Hill in Arlington. There's a little hill in Arlington where no bodies are interred, yet crosses dot the hillside, taps are sometimes heard. Unlike the unknown soldier where unknowns are in the ground, this little hill in Arlington is for soldiers never found. I grew up without a father. He was gone ere I was 4, flying for the Air Force back in the Korean War. His plane was o'er the Azores when communication ceased. The search went on for days and days. They never found a peace. My brother raised 4 children. Each day she learned to cope, but she said until a body's found, we'll never give up hope. The years went by just waiting, and my mother, bless her soul, held on until her very end to a grieving widow's role. For 50 years, we children had no resting place for Dad, no gravesite, no marker, no closure ever had. Then on a little hill in Arlington, where no bodies are interred, we raised a simple white stone. Dad's taps were finally heard. My big sister got the folding flags. We all shed the tears that had been bottled up inside us for all those 50 years. Now Dad, he has a resting place with other fallen sons on a little hill in Arlington, on a quiet little hillside right there in Arlington. Now, I'll tell you about this poem. I read it at a poetry reading in a little tiny library down here in North Carolina. When I was done, a little old man came up to me and he said, "Your dad's plane was a C-97, wasn't it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Tail number 492602. I said, "Yes." He said, "I was a young engineer. I was on the crew that flew that plane to Germany and gave it to your dad." I had to hold on to the podium. I have never met anyone who ever knew my dad other than his immediate family. We talked for a little while. We conversed for a while on the internet, and then he passed away. He was an older gentleman, you know. But that's not the end of the story. I then posted it on Facebook, and I got an email from a lady in Kansas. She said, "I recognize that plane. My father was your father's co-pilot." My sisters and I met her in Kansas City, a few months after that. We shared stories. Neither one of us knew any more than what the other did. Nothing's ever been found, ever. She still corresponds with my sister, sends her Christmas cards, but just the impact of a single poem got me those two people. That's enough.
Mike, thanks for telling that story as well. It illustrates the power of poetry to connect people and experiences. So, okay, Kathy, over to you to close the program, and I'll pull up the slide of our next speaker, next poet.
So next month, we have Carmen Bugan. I don't know if you know her, but she's a phenomenon, and she's written several books. She's from Romania. She's a professor. She's just a brilliant, beautiful woman, and we look very much forward to having her read. She has moved, I think it's to Michigan. Is that right, Dan?
Minnesota, I think.
Minnesota. No,
What are the M's?
Yeah. She moved away from us for many personal reasons. Her parents were out there, and we look very much forward to having her read. So hope to see you next month.
Thank you. She also was the first one. She came up, I mentioned earlier, the Conversations of the Sacred, and Carolyn Emerson selects the poems now, but it was Carmen Bugan. It was her vision that created that program. So we thank Carmen for that, and it'd be great to have her as a reader next month. So I'm going to turn off the mic here.